Hey, what's up everybody, how's it going? It's Dan's Great here, back with more of Final Fantasy X-2 Last Mission. And this episode is going to cover episode floor 51 to 58. And ideally I would have liked to have had everything to floor 60 in this one, but because of the boss battle there and the cutscene as well, I couldn't fit it all into one part, it was getting too long, so I decided to split it into two shorter videos. Because at the moment I've been opting for kind of 30-minute videos that include 10 floors at once for convenience. So yeah, this video is going to cover some more floors. You're going to see some more of the enemies that I was facing, and I'm going to talk about more things, trying to fill up the space for commentary as best as I can. Still using Doom. Like I mentioned, after about floor 50, Doom just became more and more of a useful ability because I wasn't scaling up as I wanted to. And you can see, I mean, the damage is still not too bad, but again, it's the problem is the damage that I'm doing and the HP of the enemies. It's just out of control. Drakes can always be difficult enemies because if you don't have the elemental protection from their breath attacks, then they can hurt you, and they have a very wide range. So with those guys I make sure I come close because then they only use their kind of normal headbutt style attack, and with impenetrable front I can always take care of things, so it's not a big deal. But you can see when you try and go brute force method, level 29 Riku plus level 10, 11, 12 Dark Knight doesn't really get the job done. And I was reluctant to use Thundaga in case it absorbed it, obviously. So again, I keep showing you guys examples like this so you can see how long it takes to defeat enemies using regular attacks. And the abilities don't really do too much more damage than the regular attacks, so there's not too much value in using them most of the time. So that was that. I didn't realise this was a different kind of Drake for a second, but it seems like we have two different types of Drakes on two different floors. So this one I had ice protection from the Songstress dress sphere, so this one wasn't a problem at all. And obviously now using Doom more and more, because just purely for speed. There was no other reason. Speed and efficiency. Because I was already getting bored of the mechanics of this game, and I wanted to just find out what was happening in the story and just get to the end. I think I kind of realised at this point that I wasn't going to get any experience points from Doom, but killing them normally wasn't really getting me many experience points either. So the time I was spending to kill enemies normally, it wasn't worth the experience I was getting for them, so I kind of just left it. You might see a few little sped up sections like this just so you can see how many hits it was taking for me to defeat enemies when I didn't want to use Doom. I think for the next 10 or so floors, I think up to about floor 60 was the last time that I really tried to defeat enemies legitimately at times to keep my levels ticking over, because I was getting worried that Riku's level 29 was really starting to drop below the the floor that I was at. I was trying to keep it kind of not too different from each other, but the gap just kept growing and growing and growing. So there wasn't too much I could do about it unless I wanted to spend a really large amount of time in this place. I mean, at the moment you can see I'm level 29, and I think I complete the game with level 39, so I only go up 10 more levels from now until the end of the game. And that's despite times where I did actually try and defeat bosses. Well, I say bosses, I mean like the bigger enemies, because I always assume that obviously bigger enemies carry more experience, so sometimes I take the extra minute to take them out, like I do with this guy. It's kind of interesting that he only covers up one square. I mean, just his arms alone make him cover 3, so I don't really get it. And I mean, again, it's another enemy where they haven't made use of the enemy's moves. It's just become a generic enemy that looks exactly, or behaves exactly like all of the others, which really annoyed me. So there's no blast punch, there's no haymaker, there's no mighty guard, there's no nothing. It's just been reduced to single attacks like this, which is a real shame. And And this is what they've done to so many enemies that had interesting moves got completely nerfed and just turned into simple, you know, attack or do nothing enemies, which really disappointed me. And obviously the slow effect with these guys was extremely annoying, so I didn't fight them too often, and I used Thundaga instead. And you can see against certain enemies Thundaga can still do a little bit of damage, which is interesting because it was actually quite rare. From this point on, other than I think after about floor 60, honestly against most enemies even Thundaga was doing nothing. It was only very few enemies that for which magic really worked well. I mean, that was something that I found quite frequently. If you notice, I mean, if you've probably seen it so far while I've been playing, but when I use physical attacks, all of the enemies almost take exactly the same damage. It's like their defense stat is almost always the same. So you have no benefit there. So let's say Flan type enemies are almost always known for their higher defense, but with this game, it doesn't matter whether you're fighting against a Drake or a Flyer or anything. They almost always do the same amount of damage. And that was really frustrating because there was no differentiation. There were no enemies for which using physical attacks was a big bonus. Every now and again using magic was helpful, as you saw against the Defender X type enemy there, because it did double the damage that it did against the Drake. But again, more often than not, most of the enemies had the same level of defense for the same kind of attack, so that's unfortunate as well. I used the dress shop guide, and this is one of the best kind of shops that you can have when you actually have dress spheres on sale, because that can really help you to increase the levels of your dress spheres quite dramatically. And again, at this stage I was trying to kind of balance it out a little bit more because I knew the Dark Knight was so far out in front of the others. I was thinking maybe I should try and get a few more dress spheres to higher levels because that would benefit me on the whole. But I kind of gave up that quickly because honestly there's just not enough to go around. There's not enough opportunities to fuse dress spheres to have, like, you know, 3 or 4 level 20 dress spheres by the time you get to the end of the game. It just doesn't happen. So once again, as I said before, in hindsight I would advise you to just focus on a couple of dress spheres at the most when it comes to leveling up. That's what I would recommend anyway. Obviously I'm no expert on this, but in my own personal experience that's what I found. It's very difficult to level up more than one dress sphere to any particularly high level. Like I said, I finished the game with a level 22 Dark Knight, and after that it was a level 9 Gunner, and the rest was all lower than that, so it's very skewed. And that was like a 12-13 hour playthrough, maybe a little bit more, so that's all I can manage. I really don't know how the leveling up system works in this game. Now that I think about it, I mean, I guess each enemy carries certain experience points, but I mean, it doesn't tell you. I mean, there's no, like I said before, there's no indicator that Doom doesn't have any experience points, which is annoying. And same thing with the Samurai ability as well, the one-hit kill ability. You don't know that, so it's a bit frustrating. What you also don't know is, do you get extra points for using abilities like you did in Final Fantasy X-2? So, you know, if you kill an enemy using an ability instead of just plain pressing X and attacking, does that count for more? I don't think it does, but again, there's no indicator of that. It would have been nice if it was a bit more, they told you how many experience points you had and what you needed to get to the next level. That way you could know how many enemies you had to defeat. But for some reason they don't, so the leveling up system is very vague in this game. You just have to randomly defeat enemies and just hope that you level up. Because there's always going to be some enemies that carry very high experience points, and if you knew which enemies those were, then you would focus your attacks more on those guys and you'd farm them, but honestly in this game you have no clue, so it's not always worth spending the time. So anyway, we're at another one of these checkpoint floors, and as you can see it's the same as it always is. There's no kind of new things that you have to do. The only particularly interesting floors for which you have to do kind of different things to get the seal open is floor 65 and floor 70, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And when we get to that part you'll see interesting things happening. So those were pretty much the only ones where I thought, okay, they finally thought of something that was a bit more creative than just killing enemies, reading books, throwing stuff, faking attacks, all this kind of stuff. All of this kind of useless stuff, really. If you look at B, C, and D, really, they're just stupid, boring things to do. You know, there's no entertainment in any of them. So, yeah. So what you're seeing is just me trying to improve the levels of my other dress spheres so I can, you know, be more successful overall. But I gave that up pretty quickly. I find that what happens is sometimes you have an abundance of dress spheres, but you don't have a way to fuse them, so you don't have any dress sphere fusions. But then sometimes it's the other way around, you have loads of fusions, but you don't pick up any dress spheres to fuse with. It's very rare that you get those two kind of in sync and balanced up, unfortunately. So I guess I might as well talk about a question I got. I asked for people to send in some questions, so I had some stuff to talk about. And someone asked me if I knew any other languages other than Turkish and English. Realistically, the answer is no, because I know a tiny bit of German, which I learned from year 7 to 9 in high school, which equates to what, age 12 to 14 or something like that. And we had like an hour a week or something of German. So from what I learned in those 2 years, you know, an hour a week, I know, you know, a little bit of vocab and a few kind of phrases here and there, but it's nowhere near enough to say that I know German. So I don't consider myself knowing any other language other than English and Turkish. But lucky for me, obviously those two languages I know fluently. English for obvious reasons, but Turkish, luckily my parents kind of, because they are both Turkish and they speak Turkish at home, I was able to learn it as a native would. So in that sense, when I'm out in Turkey and I'm talking to people, they don't realise that I'm English, which is nice. I don't have an accent or anything like that, so that's pretty cool. Come to think of it, in school for 1 year, I think, in year 9, we actually learnt some Latin, but from Latin especially I remember absolutely nothing. I really don't. So I don't know why they were teaching us that.
This feels nice and evil.
I mean, especially in high school, learning Latin at like age 14, I don't really know why, but there you go. I mean, I guess it's useful in like medical professions and that kind of stuff, but most of us had no idea what we were going to do at that point, so I don't know why they were really teaching it to us, but I guess it was something different from all the other languages that people were doing. But it just seemed like it was a lot of memory work, because obviously it's a dead language. Learning all of the tenses and the vocabs and all that kind of stuff, it was just not something that was for me. So they gave us a year to try it out, and then when it came time to choose whether you wanted to continue it on or do other subjects, I decided not to do it. So yeah, that's it. Just the 2 languages for me, but I'm still fairly happy with that. I'd love to learn Japanese for obvious reasons, for video games and anime type stuff. And obviously through the anime that I have watched, I've learned some vocabulary, but honestly, other than a few bits of vocabulary, I don't really know anything. But if there was like a Matrix type situation where you could just kind of upload it into your brain, then I'd definitely choose Japanese as one of the higher languages up on the list. So I guess I can ask you guys in the comments that are listening in, if you could learn one other language, what would it be? And why, I guess. So you can actually see that I'm using a different dress sphere for once. I think I was trying to, because Lady Luck had slow proof against Defender X, I decided to make use of it. And obviously it has long range attacks as well. But I think this is the only time that I use Lady Luck. Other than this, I didn't use it. Because look at that damage. She takes a lot of damage when she's in that dress sphere, unfortunately. But honestly, the wallop ability is a godsend. And later on, when I get the mascot dress sphere, I realise it very, very late, but the mascot has a wallop ability that works in all 4 directions, and it also costs 1 less MP as well. So I definitely recommend mascot as one of your starting kind of dress spheres, because not only with the gun mage do you get half damage, but you also get a wallop-like ability as well, which is very useful. So definitely would recommend. I was kind of running out of time. The founder was getting quite close here. Just about in time. I think I realise here that I've got impenetrable front anyway, so I don't bother healing. Well, I've got pretty much full HP anyway.
This feels nice and evil.
But yeah, lucky for me, he doesn't step onto the elevator, so it's all good. So yeah, floor 55. I don't even need to talk about what I do on those floors anymore, because they're all the same, basically. The Defender X's are quite kind of docile, they don't always come for you. Ah, here we go. This is a very annoying enemy. Why is it annoying? It's almost immune to all status effects, and especially Doom and Death. So you can't use a Samurai special ability, and you can't use Doom either. So your only choice is to use magic or to use physical attacks to damage it. So this is one of the very few enemies that Doom does not work for. But honestly, if you have Impenetrable Front, they can't do anything to you. They don't seem to have a thrust kick type ability like they do in the other Final Fantasy games. So it's no biggie. Very annoying fiends here. They use Thundaga, and I believe you need the Trainer Dress Sphere to shield yourself from thunder, from lightning. So if you can get Trainer and Black Mage, I believe, then you can protect yourself, because there's a lot of fiends, especially later on, that make use of lightning-based attacks, which is really annoying because I didn't have the Trainer Dress Sphere, so I couldn't protect myself against it. So these fungus-type enemies can be very annoying. And what's more with these guys, usually with magic-based enemies, if you come to within one square, you get locked into a physical battle instead of a magic-based one. But these guys, even if you're right up in their face, they still continue to use magic. So it's hard to protect yourself. This is just proof that Doom doesn't work.
You're safe with me.
So what I decided to use was some magic, because they were taking too long to defeat using physical hits. And Holy, truth be told, does do quite a bit of damage. That's pretty impressive. So I guess you could even, provided that you have Impenetrable Front, if you start from level 1, if you level up your White Mage, that could definitely be a useful second dress sphere to have. Just for that Holy ability, if you have MP healing over time as well, you could just walk around with your White Mage, provided that you've got enough HP to deal with the enemies. So White Mage is a must, really. Obviously for the Curaga ability and for a very powerful magic attack as well, which is nice to have. Now this guy, what an annoying flipping fiend. This was harder than most of the bosses in the game, honestly. I think I had more trouble with this than I had with the final boss. Look at the array of abilities we have here. So it has a lot of HP, uses magic from all 4 elements as well. So he took out my White Mage there. As you can see, I wasn't expecting it to use a magic attack. I thought it would use a physical attack, but it didn't. So it has a lot of HP, uses powerful magic attacks as well. It's immune to Doom, of course, because it's a Machina. Most Machina enemies tend to be immune to Doom. It also uses Holy, which does over 100 damage to my Dark Knight, who has very high magic defense. So any other dress sphere is going to take a massive punishing from that. So these guys, they're very difficult to defeat. But I guess since they were so difficult to defeat, I thought I would try my luck anyway, and it was also blocking the exit as well. So I thought I'd get a lot of experience points for defeating it, and to be honest, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if you do, but I assume you would. But yeah, these guys, they're very annoying. I don't know why it's called a pot fry. I think that's a stupid name for this Machina. I swear that was an attack that a fiend used in the monster arena. There was a behemoth type fiend, and I think the attack it used was called pot fry. Don't know why they called it that. But you can see physical attacks do little damage as well. So I skipped ahead, because honestly I didn't have too much other ways to damage it. I think the Black Mage's Thundaga also heals it, so you also have that thing as well, so you can't attack it with thunder-based magic. So your only magical choice is Holy, really. Let me try. Yeah, it healed. There you go. So yeah, an extremely annoying fiend, honestly. Did I end up not defeating it? I forget. I think I actually ran away from it. Yeah, I think I ran away. And then I came back and psycho bombed the hell out of this place. Psychic bombed the hell out of this place. because I wasn't going to let it get away with it. After doing this much damage, I thought there's no way. But seriously, I mean, why would they make such a difficult fiend on floor 58? Honestly, it's more difficult than most of the other fiends in the game, including bosses, honestly. So I was very surprised to encounter this thing. This was actually a reload. I reloaded because the first time I encountered him, he actually took me out with the holy attack, so I wasn't going to have that, so I reloaded for him. So he effectively caused me a game over. Because obviously when you have a dress sphere like Dark Knight leveled up so highly, the second you lose your Dark Knight dress sphere, you might as well just reload because it's your main weapon. So you're not going to waste all of that hard work to level it up. Okay, I'm going to end this part here after I've dealt with this pot fry, and I'll be back with the final levels and also the boss from level 60, which I think, in my opinion, is probably the best boss out of all of them, including the last boss. So at least you'll get to see that as well. Okay, I'll see you guys more soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.